As guitar players in 2025, we are absolutely spoiled when it comes to having access to absolutely killer guitar tones. Whether you're a budget, at-home, budget-conscious guitar player like many of us are, or an industry-leading professional, there are so many options out there, such as, amazing guitar amps, amazing plugins, or even modelers. For today's video, I want to be talking about one particular way to get a guitar tone, and that's through a modeler. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to use amp modelers. In this particular case, I'm going to be showing you guys how to use a Helix to get it, but take what I'm using here and apply it to whatever particular modeler you have at home. For those of you who don't know, hi, my name is Dante. I'm a guitar player and bass player turned audio engineer, aiming to give anybody aspiring in this very, very dense profession an inside look into doing stuff your own. But with that being said, let's hop into this video and check out a full demo track to see what we're working with. Now that we have that full mix out of the way, let's go over a few things before hopping into Tone World. First things first, let's talk about the guitar itself. This is a very, very, very important thing in the metal world because this is kind of one of the biggest factors when it comes to having a driving mix and song. So you want to make sure you have a decent guitar. It doesn't have to be a fancy one like this, just as long as you can get signal out and it's set up and you have a good new set of strings, you'll be set. But now that we talked about the physical instrument, let's talk about the instrument in terms of the auditory things. Since the guitar does play a very big role in how we hear metal music, we're aiming to get a tone that is very aggressive and rich. And in order to do that, we need to focus on the frequency range of the guitar as a whole. Whether you're using a 6-string, a 7-string, an 8-string, a 9-string, maybe even a 10-string, however many strings you decide to have. Regardless of what tuning you're in, a guitar is primarily a mid-range instrument. So you want to make sure that when looking for a tone, whether it's with a modeler like we have here, a real amp or a plugin, mid-range is your friend. Now that we've kind of gone over the role of a guitar, let's hop in to HX Edit and see what we're working with for signal flow. But before we hop into everything here, if you guys happen to be an artist or a band looking to get your track mixed and mastered, click the first link in the description box below. You'll be taken to my website to find a way to contact me. Let's work together and have an awesome project to work on and make something cool. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's hop into HX Edit and see what we're working with. All right, I'm not going to be doing a live screen share feed of my screen. Here's what HX Edit looks like. You can see this is the exact tone I had. So you can see this top row here is what I used, but here's what an empty track looks like. So from left to right, this is how the signal flow goes. It goes in from the left, out to the right. So let's first worry about getting signal into it. Once you plug your guitar in on the Helix, you'll find a bunch of inputs and outputs on the back. You'll want to plug into the guitar input. First thing I want to hit the, I just left mine on multi just because either choose the guitar or Variax, which is like the Line 6 guitar. I'm not going to be talking about the Variax, but what I did is I put an input gate on, I put decay to 10, and then I just adjust threshold from there after later down the line. And then I just changed the guitar in Z input to 1K ohm just because that changes just the response of the DI signal going in, and I liked it there. And then on the output here where it says multi, you'll change that to whatever desired output it is, but because I recorded direct, I went with XLR. Let's go back to my regular patch that I used for this, for the mix you guys heard earlier. Again, here's another screenshot of what it looks like. All right, so first thing I did on this very first one was something I didn't use entirely, like I didn't use at all on this track, was the feedbacker plugin. I think I'm not sure exactly what patch they put that in for the patch update, but I just use this for just some occasional creative stuff. But I didn't use it at all, so don't worry about that. First things I did was I added a distortion block, and I chose the Time. I added that overdrive. Obviously, there's a lot of different overdrives out there to choose from. The reason you're doing an overdrive first is in the most practiced thing in guitar tone search is, using an overdrive in the front of your amp to help shape your tone a bit and also help push the mid-range, because as I had stated earlier, a mid-range guitar is very important in order to be heard and cut through, and obviously to sound good, because guitar is a mid-range instrument. So there's a bunch to choose from. I just chose the Time just because it gave me a bass cut. I used the bass cut on this block to just cut low end, because again, you don't need too much low end in a guitar. We're more after an aggressive mid-range for guitar, so I cut that. Treble left where it is. Gain you set to 0 because you don't really want to add more distortion. That's what we're using an amp. That's what where the amp comes in. We'll go over that later. And then level, we're maxing all the way out, because when it does that, it helps saturate the amp a bit more and make it sound a bit more aggressive, and leading to more mid-range distortion, which we need. Again, there's a bunch of different options in the Helix, especially now in 2025. So just choose one that you feel does the best for what you're looking for in a tone. And again, guitar tone is somewhat subjective and somewhat personal, but generally we want like a mid-range style tone. So again, this is the Time. Here's my settings here. No gain, cutting all the bass, leaving treble where it is. After that, I just went to a noise gate with my settings here, with the decay at 250 and the threshold at -40. This was just where I felt like it sounded best. And then the level, I pushed additional 6 dB, so I have more gain staging coming out of both my pedal and my overdrive pedal and my noise gate, just to help saturate signal more before hitting the amp. Because saturation is something you do need in a metal tone, but not too much. Don't overdo it. And then now let's go on to the preamp, which is our guitar amp. Again, there are so many options to choose from in the Helix, and you may be hearing me say Helix a lot just because that's the particular unit I'm using right now. If you happen to have, an Axe FX or Kemper or whatever other modeler you happen to be using, there's a bunch of stuff to choose from. You just want to make sure you have something that's, generally down the alley you're going for. But I chose the Cali 4 lead, which is, I believe, based off the Mesa Mark II C Plus, maybe. Don't quote me on that, but it's definitely a Mesa amp. I chose this just because it had a slightly different character from a traditional 5150 6505 rectifier style sound. I wanted something a little different than that, so I chose this. There are a lot of very popular amps out there that you hear pretty much everywhere, that being the 6505, the 5150, the dual rectifier are like the 3 big ones. So if you don't know where to start and you're overwhelmed, choose one of those 3. But I chose this guy. Something you want to keep in mind with gain, because usually gain is the first thing you see on an amp, is you don't want to overdo it, because the more gain you add to a distorted guitar signal, especially on a distorted amp, the more compressed and flubby it sounds, so you don't want to overdo it. So just turn it up until you hear it start getting a little tubby, back it off a bit. that easy. Something that's a little different with this particular amp, both in real life and in this particular modeler, is the EQ, because you have like a pre and post EQ kind of thing. So on the pre EQ, I took all the bass and mid-range out, and you may be asking, hey, you're cutting mid-range. You said that guitar is a mid-range instrument, and it is. But for this particular one, this particular amp, doing no bass, no mid-range on the pre-EQ section, for some reason sounds really good, and then I just crank the treble up. That's like I'll max the treble out. For some reason that works. For this amp, I did it that way. But if you're using an amp that just has a stereotypical 3-band EQ like bass, middle, treble, obviously you want to focus on mid-range, so make sure it's not cranked, and also make sure it's not scooped either, because you can kind of mess around with how scooped or cranked it is. So but don't go extreme in one area or another. And obviously play with the bass. You do want to cut, you don't want too much bass either, so focus more on like your mid-range and treble, just because that's where guitar sits. Presence is just another thing you'll find in a lot of amps, both in real life and in the digital domain. Presence is kind of just, to my understanding, a post preamp EQ, and that presence just helps boost your upper frequencies, I believe above like 4K, but it depends on the amp. Adjust that to taste, and then adjust master to taste. And then what's cool about the Helix is you can adjust your sag and hum. Is a power amp thing. Sag is like a compression. Hum is just your noise you get. So I cut sag and hum just out of pretty much everything, just because I don't really want that compression or that noise coming from it. But again, this is mostly personal preference. So if you prefer how those sound cranked up, definitely do that. But this is just a general outline for how to, proceed with dialing tone. And then what's cool about the Cali 4 lead in the Helix and the real Amp 2 is you have a post EQ as well, that you can, which allows for more tone shaping. Here I did cut some of like the mid-range, kind of like the weird mid-range at 240 and 750. Those I did cut just because those I don't really need. I find tend to be a little weird to my ears. And then everything else I boosted a bit. So 80 hertz, 2200 and 6600, which are all very important frequency ranges in guitar. So I boosted 80 just to get a little bit more fullness in the low end. 2200 I boost just to be a bit more auto. 2200, I boosted that because that's a mid-range frequency that is very pleasing to us. So I boosted that a bit. And 6600 is like a presence area that I boosted a bit. Last thing here is the cab. We need a cab because if you don't have a cab, it sounds like shit. And if you're not too well versed into guitar cabs, and you're like, okay, I just want like one singular cab that sounds good, look for something that has that's loaded with V30s in it, because V30s is like the metal sound. But what I did here is I did something a little different that I don't hear too many people talk about in the metal world, but I ended up using two cabs with two different speakers. They are both V30 loaded cabs. I did the 412 Cali V30, which is based off the Mesa Boogie rectifier cab, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's loaded with V30s. That I chose the 57 Dynamic, which is literally based off the Shure SM57, very popular mic. I did that right on the cap edge. I did distance at 1 inch, so it's like right up against the speaker. That gives you a very direct sound. Another thing here, which is really nice about like modelers, is you can have a low cut and a high cut filter on the cab itself. I did use this to pre-shape the tone going into my computer. When I personally am dialing in tones, I am thinking in terms of a full band mix. So that's another reason why I say focus on mid-range, is because when you are gonna be playing the guitar, whether it's in a live band situation or in the studio, to get mixed and mastered for a track. So I did use the low cut at 80 hertz to remove just whatever low end rumble I don't need. I did a high cut just to get rid of any of top end fizz I don't need. That changes from cab to cab, and from amp to amp depending on what I'm using. But this particular one I did 80 hertz again to get rid of the rumble, and 10.5 just to get rid of any of the top end information I don't need in a guitar. Another thing is you can do the level, pan and delay as well. So obviously level is just how loud that particular cab and speaker sound is. I looked at that one at 0. You can do panning if you're doing like a stereo setup, which I'm not going in, at least I'm not. So I left it at center. Delay, you can do that in like milliseconds. I think it goes from like 0 all the way to 50 milliseconds. I don't want that because since I am using 2 cabs, I want them to be perfectly in phase, because if you mess with the phase of the speakers and not gonna sound great. Since I did use 2 cabs, the second cab I have here is the 212 Interstate cab. It's a vertical 212 loaded with V30s, and I believe it's based off the Dr. Z cab, which that brand is renowned for sounding great. Again, what made me choose a 212 over a 412 is a 212 tends to be a bit tighter and more mid-range forward. So I kind of use this to complement the 412, which tends to be a bit more fuller in the low end. The mic I used was a different mic. It's the 421 Dynamic, which is based off the Sennheiser MD421. I chose that one because, again, that mic is voiced a little bit differently than the 57. It does have this really pleasing like mid-range thing that I like, and it blends well, in my opinion, blends well with the 57. Again, I also went on the cap edge with that. I also did 1 inch as well. Again, you could change this depending on what you're doing. The low cut, I didn't have a low cut on this, which I probably should have. I'm gonna turn that on now. I'm gonna do 80 hertz. Again, I'm actually gonna do 90 hertz, and then a high cut at 11K. And again, that low cut, high cut EQ post cab is just to help clean up whatever information I don't need. And it also saves me time when mixing. So that's why I did those. Again, this is 0 degrees. Level I had at 0 as well. Pan in the center, delay at 0.0 milliseconds, just because I want both cabs and mics to be in phase. I don't want to mess with the phase because phase can be pretty difficult to fix post mix, especially when recording on one track like this. So you want to make sure that that's figured out beforehand. But yeah, so that's how you dial in a modern metal tone. It's not genre specific. Made this video just as a starting off point, and because it is just a starting off point, take this video as leverage towards whatever style you're using. Again, this track I did just kind of like a stereotypical metalcore mix. So let's say you're like, okay, I'm more of a hardcore band that is using modelers like this. So I'm gonna watch this and just take what I'm doing and apply it to whatever genre you're in or whatever style you're using. Take what I have here and just adjust where you need. Again, biggest thing to take away from this video is you want to make sure when inside the Helix, you want to make sure you're using amps, cabs, speakers, and pedals that complement the mid-range of the guitar, because again, guitar is a mid-range based instrument, and in order to be heard, you need mid-range. Don't overdo it with the knobs. Just go until you'll be like, okay, that sounds good, and once it sounds good, leave it. If you need to adjust it, go back, but don't adjust by much. That's how to do stuff in here. And also another thing, key takeaway, make sure your guitar, whatever guitar you're using, it doesn't matter how cheap or how expensive it is, make sure you have new strings, it's set up properly, you're playing right, playing well, playing aggressive, because if you're not playing right, it doesn't matter how nice of a guitar you're using, it doesn't matter how expensive your amp is, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're not playing right, you're not going to sound good. So that's the biggest thing to take away, is once you have a well-playing guitar and you yourself are playing to the best of your ability, everything else is going to come fairly easy. With that being said, if you guys like today's video, feel free to like, subscribe, and turn on bell notifications to stay up to date with what I'm doing and to further understand production, audio production in the metal world. Again, like I had stated earlier in the video, if you happen to be an artist or a band looking to get your track mixed and or mastered, click the first link in the description box below to be taken to my website so you guys can check out what I've worked on so far in my career. And if you like what I do, feel free to contact me. Let's work on something and make something cool together. But that being said, if you guys have a topic you guys want me to talk on, leave it in the comment section below, or feel free to, you know, contact me another way with whatever idea you have, and we'll do something cool with that. But with that being said, this is how you dial in a modern metal tone using modelers. If you guys want to recommend me something, comment section is always open. I'll see you guys next time. Rock on, guys.